It's the Rack Me Football Podcast. We have a very special guest today. Ken, would you like to introduce today's guest?
Yeah, this is great. This is a guy I knew many, many years ago. We have, to this day, some of the same friends, best friends, longtime friends. I could throw Steve Parker's name around and the G Petty boys' names around and stuff like that. But look, to describe our guest today, I think Doug Deacon said it best. Doug Deacon said that Dino Hall is one of the toughest Cleveland Browns he's ever played with, and it's really great to see. Call him my old pal, Dino Hall. Dino, welcome to Rack 'Em Podcast with Chad Zumock wearing the Browns jersey and Tony up there in the emergency room.
I see him. Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for that introduction. Hey, how's your son? Son okay?
Yeah, my son's doing great, Dino. Thanks. He's hanging in there. My twins are 23 years old, and as you may know, our Autism Foundation is in its 21st year. And July 14th, we're having our 12th annual comedy night at Seaview. And a lot of your old buddies are there. A lot of your old buddies have been supporting us since day one. I'll have to get you some information about that. But he's doing great.
Good.
Yeah, he's doing great.
Real good. I'm like 10 minutes away from there.
Yeah, yep. I know you're out there. So as I said when I spoke with you, Dino, and our text messages back and forth, both Tony and Chad are from Cleveland. They're both comics. Chad is now headquartered in Tampa. Tony's still in Cleveland. He's also the director. What are you, Tony? The program director for
Fox Station in Cleveland. Yeah, 107.3 in Cleveland.
107.3 in Cleveland. So,
I used to be on 100.7 WMMS, The Buzzard.
Wow.
Yeah. So these are, I said to Chad, Dino, that I was going to do an introduction and I'll dive in here and there. But these are two crazy Cleveland Brown fans. If you recall, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Yeah, we know.
I remember you. I can remember Dino. I can remember Dino when I was playing baseball for the Hurricanes. He was in the outfield before the game with Keith Levan, the lefty quarterback, Keith Levan, who another good family friend. And
another Margate guy, yeah.
Another Margate guy, yep. And guys, I got to tell you, so Dino is about 10 yards from Keith, who was a quarterback at Holy Spirit High School. Dino played at Pleasantville High School, which is 20 minutes from where I live here in Ventnor. And he was just, Keith was just left hand, just ripping him at Dino. And there's Dino, boom, boom, boom. So, Dino always had special hands. And if he didn't play in the NFL, guys, Dino was a pretty damn good baseball player at what used to be Glassboro State. And Dino still resides in that Hall of Fame.
That's incredible, because
one of my favorite places of all time.
That was one of the first things I wanted to ask you, Dino, because with you being your size, and I'm sure you probably had a lot of people tell you can't make it or anything like that. Did it cross your mind when you came to, because there's always that stereotype of the baseball player, the scrappy second baseman, the speedy center fielder who's like, and it's usually someone who's undersized and everything. But what made you? I mean, obviously, what Ken was giving you your bio and a little bit of your resume and what you were able to do, but was there any thought to maybe I could do like a two-sport type of situation? Maybe I can look in terms of turning pro and see where it takes me, or was football just number one on your mind?
Football wasn't number one on my mind. And the reason was I finally got talked out of playing football because everybody kept on saying how small I was. And I can go back to 7 years old. I was maybe 35 pounds playing football, organized football. And they said, well, he's good at this level, but the next level he won't make, which was a peewee, which then I made that. Then JV, yeah, he definitely won't make that. Then varsity came around, and listen, I was 92 pounds in a league that was 145, and there were some big people. And I ended up playing there, but I went through high school. I played 4 years at high school. My baseball coach said, look, if you have a shot at anything, it'll be baseball. You're just too small to play football. I went to Glassboro. I didn't play football my first 2 years at Glassboro. I played fall baseball so I could make, and I did. I made the varsity team the first 2 years there, but third year I had a friend that I lived with, and he said, look, we need defensive back. So I said, oh, I can play defensive back. So I ended up going out for the football team, maybe a week before their preseason. And they had this thing, it was 20/40s, and you had to run them under 5.1 seconds or something. And it doesn't sound like much, but after 10, you're running a pretty good clip. And so I didn't know. That was the first year I ever did it. So I'm sprinting at 4.5s the first 10, and my buddy goes, listen, you're going to have to slow down or you're not going to make it. And without his coaching, I probably wouldn't have made it. But yeah, I ended up getting hurt playing safety. I started safety for them. I got hurt. I came back. They said, look, we got this freshman. He's going to be our safety. Why don't you go to running back? I said, okay, I'll play running back. And then the rest is history. The next 2 years, I had pretty good years for them. And luckily, honestly, I never got drafted, although I was contacted by a couple teams. They knew they didn't have to draft me. But I ended up getting a tryout with Jim Garrett in Monmouth Beach, New Jersey. That was his home away from Cleveland. And Jim, if you don't know, Jim's son is Jason Garrett.
Jason. Yep. Jason and John. Yep.
John also coaches, and Judd, another one. 3 of them played in the NFL. He played in the NFL, and he had to coach 20 years in the NFL and another 20. But anyway, so I ran a 4.49 for him by myself. And, he had me running around, catching the ball, doing everything. He calls up Sam, and Sam apologizes to Jim Garrett and says, look, man, I'm sorry. I know I sent you this slug. He's a friend of Denny Lynch's, and we just wanted to give him a tryout. And Garrett said, no, we got to sign this kid. He can play. So that's how I got my break. And that was 6 weeks before the camp. So I didn't even go to the mini camp that year.
And that was Sam Rutigliano was coaching the Browns at that time, right?
Sam was the head coach.
Yeah, and he was a piece of work. I mean, I'm sure you got some Sam stories out there too, but Rutigliano was a piece of work. He liked to have a good time though, didn't he?
I tell you what, great motivational speaker was Sam. Thought, and listen, coming from Glassboro, where we had maybe 7,500 fans, the first game I played was against the Steelers at Cleveland Municipal, and it was 83,000, 85,000. I mean, it was crazy to see that many people and that many crazy people about that game, especially the Steelers game. And we ended up, we lost 51-35, but it was a heck of a game. Like, they started out, they were up 28-0.
That's what I wanted to ask you. What's the first thought that comes to your mind when I say municipal stadium? First thought.
Well, one of the thoughts is how far people that bought tickets at the 50-yard line were away from the field. It was 40 yards from the field because it was built for baseball. So we used to actually, when we separated into groups, our running back coach was Jim Garrett. He took us over there, and we would actually work out in that little area. When I'm talking, it was 40 yards. That was the one thing. The other thing is the infield kind of messed some things up. They tried to put grass down, but it always kicked out.
They painted it green.
Yeah, so it was kind of, and they did paint it. They actually painted the field, which, I didn't know until I rolled around in it, but yeah, they painted it.
It's incredible when you think about those concrete donuts. I mean, that was the time before even playing at Veterans Stadium and Three Rivers and everything. And what was it like dealing with the turf? You're going from playing at the stadium where they're painting the dirt, then you got to play on the road in Pittsburgh. You're playing up in Detroit at and you're playing on AstroTurf. And like, what was it like?
There you go, Dino. Here's a flashback for you.
There you go.
Way to go, Chad. That's awesome.
Well, there, look, see all the room back in there.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's the dugouts back there, all the way in the end zone, right? Yeah, look.
Yep.
Yeah, like if you bought tickets to 50, you had worse seats, and then somebody was in the end zone. Although they had the limited site seating. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was they actually had pillars and to hold the roof up, which was a good thing, I guess. But they had seating behind the pillars, so if ball was on the one sideline, they couldn't see anything.
And this was before jumbotrons. There was nothing.
Yeah, you're right. It was. No, it was different back then. And to answer your question, Tony, I did not like AstroTurf. I thought the domes were the worst place to play, especially the Houston Astrodome. It was so hard to see the ball. Their ceiling was just so bright, and then when the ball came down from punting, it just was very difficult to pick up. And they had seams all over. So Keith Wright. The reason I ended up getting back into Cleveland was Keith Wright blew his knee out there, just making a cut. It wasn't like somebody tackled him and pounded his knee. And you could get caught on the seam there, and you were blowing out a knee or something.
How cold was it?
Games. I'm sorry, Chad. Go ahead.
How cold was it playing on Lake Erie? I mean, you had to have been freezing your butt off.
Yeah, but not every week. But I tell you what, the 1980 game against the Raiders was crazy cold. I mean, my wife was there. She wasn't my wife at the time, but she was there. She said the only place they could get warm was to go into the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Because they had heat in the bathrooms, everything. And it was 0 and it was 30 below wind chill. The wind chill, it was unbelievable. But they had those seated hot seats. Kenny, I don't know if you know, the guy in Pleasantville, Jenkins.
Yeah.
Invented the heated.
It's the Jenkins hot seat on Main Street in Pleasantville.
And they brought them out for that game.
Yep.
Without them, I don't know if we could have played that whole game. I'll be honest with you, without freezing.
I want to bring up because you came out in '79 and you're talking about kind of this new renaissance of the Browns. So for folks listening, I mean, the Cleveland Browns, one of the great storied franchises of all time, the AAFC. And then they say, can you make it in the NFL? And of course they did. And Jim Brown, Frank Ryan, Paul Brown, all the way to Blanton Collier. Then you had the 1970s with Forrest Gregg, and the years were just the glory days of those teams were over. You had Art Modell firmly in place with Stadium Corp and everything. But then by the time the end of the 70s, you start to see things in place. Clay Matthews gets drafted, and Ozzie Newsome is a big part of it. And you're starting to see this turnaround. Then Sam Ratigliano is the head coach in '78. And things start to really kind of turn around, culminating with that 1980 season. Talk about what you saw from when you got picked up by the team to what you saw and how that this team was building. Did you feel that when you joined the team that there was something brewing that was going to be very special that ended up culminating in that Kardiac Kids team in 1980?
Well, you just mentioned Clay and Ozzie. That was their '78 draft class. That was a pretty good draft class. I mean, they got some special players in that class. Now, '79 was Willis Adams was the number one. I don't know if you guys even know who Willis Adams is. He played 3 or 4 years with us. He was a receiver, but he was number one. He just never amounted to what they thought he was going to be. But our special thing was not so much the talent that we had, although we had some talented players. Our special thing, look, Brian Sipe, one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. I mean, genuine, not a guy that said, look, I'm Brian Sipe, I'm MVP of the league. I don't think I've ever heard him say anything like that. He just was one of those special people. And all the offensive linemen, I like Doug Deacon. When I come out, I still try to see him. I see Robert Jackson, who was another lineman who Robert Jackson was integral in keeping that team together because he got us all together after every game. And I know they don't do it now, but we used to just go into regular restaurants and, we'd have our meals together. And sometimes they would put us in a room, but we would come back out and socialize. Well, they don't do that anymore, which I think eliminates fans from really seeing the type of person each player is. And look, Brian, if you ever saw it, and I don't know if you guys have seen him recently, he's not a big man. But he was a competitor, and the thing is, he knew when to get rid of the ball. And I think one of the best things that I take away from those years was how Brian was able to play and come back in the game with a concussion. Now, concussion protocols now keep kids out, which is probably the right thing to do. But in my time and I was 5 years, and Brian was there. He had to have 10 concussions, and he played prior to that. So I don't know how many in it, but he's doing spectacular, And look, my favorite roommate is Matt Miller. and you guys may not, but he was an lineman too from 79. Cody Risen was a lineman that we got in 79. It was a really good pick. Another good friend. Being 5'7", being smart, I hung out with those guys that were 6'5", 6'6", because listen, they knew every time I came in the huddle, I was going to give them everything I had, and they actually gave me everything they had. So, that's one thing I wanted to bring up. I don't know what you guys think about the quarterback situation. How you see? I am a Baker Mayfield fan. I really like the kid. I think when you watch him in the huddle is where you actually pick up on him, Baker Mayfield. But he's playing position where if you're 100% healthy, it's hard enough. Let alone last year, Kenny, you play baseball. And listen, you're throwing the ball, and even though it's not your throwing shoulder, you got to bring the other shoulder up to throw the ball. That's got to hurt every time you do that. You got somebody 300 pounds chasing you and snarling at you. When they knock you down and fall on you, that's got you. So I don't know. I just think they didn't give him a fair shake this year. They should have sat him down. He should have been, taken out at least 4 or 5 weeks. And Case Keenum I thought was good enough to play those 4 or 5 weeks.
I think they sabotage him.
Yeah, during the season,
I do too.
we were talking about that. Chad and Tony were saying that he should sit down, and I think they maybe they wanted to, but Baker Mayfield doesn't seem like the type of player that wants to sit. But yeah, he should have sat. I mean, I think it would have done him and the team a world of good. But I mean, look where he's at now. Right. I mean, I think he's in limbo, even though with Watson also being in limbo, because you don't know if he's going to have any type of suspension from the NFL yet. So, you need Baker Mayfield, but there's no market for him right now.
Well, I'll give you my thoughts real quick. I think the whole situation stinks. I don't like the Deshaun Watson. I know he's a quality quarterback, but I don't like what they did to Baker. Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. They did him wrong. He was playing hurt. And I hope Baker, whatever team he goes to, just sticks it to him. That's where I stand.
I thought that kid could get us to the Super Bowl. Which is unbelievable, because we've had some great teams and we just never have gotten to the Super Bowl. And how many years is it now? 57, is it? Or 58 years for Super Bowls?
Tony, I'll let you feel that one.
Yeah, it's incredible when you think about it. My God.
And Dino, when you think about those years, Dino, in your years, you played 5 years, and I believe there's at least 3. And Tony will know this because he's the savant when it comes to this. But I believe 3 or 4 of those years, you guys were above 500. You guys were playoff teams. I mean, you lost that game to I guess when Sype threw that interception in the end zone. Mm-hmm. And that was a tough loss. But those
Red
years,
right 88.
Yeah. Those years, Dino, you were there. You guys won a lot of games. You were top 10 in kickoff and punt returns every year you played.
Well, I don't know about every year, but
I got it right here in front of me.
Because my rookie year was my best year. I'll be honest with you. I had no fear of anything at that point. And I had a terrible game. I mean, to the point where, most people, it would have crushed. I fumbled the ball 3 times in the last game of the year against Cincinnati. And the one fumble, I lost on my average a yard because the guy knocked it out of my arms. He just, his helmet hit there and it flew 30 yards backwards. I mean, when I tell you, and we didn't recover, which kind of was not a good thing, but I mean, it was incredible. And so the next year, Keith came back. He returned punts. I returned kicks with him. And, I didn't play much running back that year. But my rookie year, I played a lot of running back, that was the one thing that I really was disappointed. I never was able to play 4 downs in the backfield. It was, listen, when I came in,
change of pace.
Yeah, when I came in, all of a sudden they're like, all right, he's in, he's going to get the ball. So now I'm a little bit of pressure, although I thought I was pretty successful a lot of times. But the thing is, like, I would have liked to have been in there first, second, and third down just to see what I could have done. And listen, was I going to be a blocking back? No. And we had Mike Pruitt, who,
Pruitt boys,
somebody to block for him. But and look, Charlie White, like you were talking about Deke, about myself. Charlie White he had no restrictions on the way he played. Now he didn't have the speed that they thought he was going to have. He did, but he was one of the toughest players I ever played with. I mean, our linemen used to love watching how he pass blocked in that 1980 season. I mean, it was incredible.
Well, I wanted to see, you were talking special teams, and I have a near and dear favorite Cleveland Brown. No disrespect to you, Dino, but he broke some of your records, and I went to college with him. Kent State University, Mr. Josh Cribbs.
Yeah,
Kent State, right there. Boom, Kent.
He's a great player. You're right, Chad. I got a chance to meet him a couple of times. The first time I met him in Baltimore, because we're like 3 hours from Baltimore, so we would drive there to watch a Baltimore Browns game. And what a special kid, and what a really nice young man. Really is. I don't know what he's doing now. Is he coaching or doing anything?
Tony,
I'm hosting a TV show.
A local Cleveland show.
Oh, yeah, it's one of those local yokel shows.
Wow.
What was funny is he was a quarterback at Kent State. He in the MAC, he was a quarterback, and then he became a special teams just guru.
He was awesome. Listen, you don't find many guys. There was a guy from Chicago, Devin
Hester.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable. You don't find many. Listen, the guy that the Cube was he weighed, because I met him. He said, "Look, I only weighed 140 pounds when he played in Cleveland. Could you imagine playing at 140 pounds?" And he played receiver. He would go out there in the slot and catch as many. But he was another player that was unbelievable.
I wanted to ask you, when you talk about as the Kardiac Kids year was incredible. I mean, anywhere you go, everybody mentions it in Cleveland, everything. And then eventually, as the 80s kind of went about, you had the so your final year was 1983, but this is also the time where now you have the USFL and you have all these other leagues really starting up. Like, were you thinking about your opportunity? Because I says my uncle actually got picked up by the Oakland Raiders back in 1980. And the problem was when he got cut by, I don't know if it was Flores or John Madden was the coach at the time. When he ended up getting cut, there wasn't another league. There wasn't like what it is now, where you can go to the Arena Football League, you can go overseas, you can play in Canada, it was that, or you're selling insurance. Now, was there that fear for you where you're like, I'm out of football right now. What do I do? What's my next move here?
You know what? I had no clue, honestly. Ended up with a degree, and fortunately I was able to use that later on. I was a teacher for 31 years, but 83, I got cut. I actually got a phone call from Chuck Knox from Seattle. They were in the playoffs. Now the season was done, but their returner got hurt, and they actually talked to me about coming out, but they used somebody else. And the same thing happened with the Dolphins. Could you imagine? The Dolphins ended up the Super Bowl that year. So I got called by them because what was his name?
Fulton Walker.
Yeah, he ended up breaking his jaw, and they weren't sure if he was going to be able to play, which he ended up playing because he scored a touchdown. He returned one for a touchdown. But I almost got picked up there. I would have made more money in the 4 games playing with them than I made in the 16 playing with the Browns the year before.
Incredible.
Yeah,
but that
also
great.
And yeah, I want to go ahead, Tony.
No, you go, Ken.
I wanted to ask you. You played 3 years with Lyle Alzado. I think 79, 81, 3 years with Alzado. You must have some Alzado stories. I mean, he look, it's legendary now. We know how he died. He before his death, he felt that he got the brain cancer due to just the amount of steroids he was taking, basically, like not cycling off and things like that. But how was he to be around during those, I guess it was the early part of his career as well.
Well, he had been in Denver for a while.
That's right. He was in Denver. That's right. Yep. He was 8 years in Denver. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he came with us, and that was after he fought Ali too. So
that's right.
Yeah. But no, I tell you, Lyle was different, but he was only 260 when he was in Cleveland. He wasn't doing all that stuff. Then right before he went to Oakland and played with them, he was 295. So he had to be doing something. And his eyes were, I don't know if you ever seen his eyes, like when he played. I mean, they were
Bugging out.
his pupils were as big as everything else in his eye. It was kind of crazy to watch him play, but no, we actually we played with some guys that, like, Lyle was a character. Clay Matthews was a fun guy to be around. I mean, I played Dick Ambrose. I don't know if you know Judge Ambrose, but another great guy.
I know the name. Yeah.
But yeah, they were all good people to be around, and Lyle was too. Now, a friend of mine's a bartender at Yesterday's. I don't know if you've ever been there, Ken.
Absolutely.
Ron.
Yes.
So Ron came out with my cousin to visit me. So we're playing a game at the table, and Alzado's there with us, and he's playing with us. You know, so Ron wins, and Alzado looks at him, you know, goes, and Ron goes, "Oh man, what's wrong with him?" And he goes, "Listen, don't laugh at me again. Don't." He tells Ron. So Ronnie's there like, "All right, Mr. Alzado, I definitely won't do anymore." But yeah, Lyle was good people. I mean, there wasn't a bad person on the team. I'll be honest with you. I can't say like, I really dislike this guy. Although I'll tell you a story. First 5 weeks, Keith Wright in 1979 is the returner for the Browns. He gets hurt. They call me up, and I'm having dinner with my mom and my family. And all of a sudden, it's this guy, Denny Lynch, who was the assistant general manager. He goes, "Dino, we need you in Cleveland." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, Keith blew his knee out. Sam told me to call you. We want you back in tomorrow." So, man, I hang the phone up. I'm friggin' excited, crazy excited. I end up, you know, saying, "Mom, man, they want me to come." So I end up flying in, and that's the week that we play the Steelers. Well, the Steelers had played the Eagles that week, and they lost like 13-7 or something like that. And I'm thinking, because I used to watch the Eagles, obviously being in that area, and I'm thinking, man, whoever plays them, man, they're going to take an ass whooping next week. And guess who played them? I was playing against them. We had 9 kickoffs to tell you how many times they scored against us. So,
well, hey, Dino, let me ask you this, because we have a lot of Cleveland listeners, and Tony and I are like somewhat Cleveland historians. When you were living there, where were some of your hangouts? Where were some of the places you would go to, like the old school places, restaurants, bars, you name? Like, I'm just curious.
Well, in Berea, we used to go, because that's where
The facility is.
Yeah. So Rampant Lion, it was called. Obviously, it's not there anymore.
Right.
Puffer Belly was a place there, like a little train station.
It still is in Kent, actually. There's one in Kent.
There was another place that we used in Great Northern Mall. I forget the name of it, but I used to meet the Ambroses there and some other people, Matthews but yeah, we used to hang out there. But I remember going down to Flats back then, and it was all mud. You know, your parking was a muddy lot. Now it's beautiful down there. Pretty incredible.
There's still muddy lots though.
Oh, is there?
Wow. Yeah, it's still difficult to get. But yeah, they did a nice revamp of the East Bank of the Flats right now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Well,
did you go over to Captain Frank's?
I was not there.
That was the fish joint, which is where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is now located.
Okay. All right.
And I'm doing this for Tony right now. Do you know who this is? I'm going to put it on the screen.
I'm not sure. Who is that?
That's Superhost. He hosted on Channel 43 WUAB. I was just testing you. I wanted to, because he brought up Big Chuck and Little John earlier. I wanted to know if you knew who that guy was.
I thought he was going to say he tackled me or something like that.
No, but we started off the podcast that so you did a Big Chuck and Little John sketch. Is that true?
2 of them. Yeah, Deacon and I did. First one, we were dressed up like cowboys, and I walk in, and it's his house, I guess, obviously, and his girlfriend, and I start sweet talking to her, and then he shows back up, and he knocks on the door, and he goes, "Where is he? Where is that little Dino Hall. I know he's here, and he brings in this little hobby horse, and he sets it down right there in the what's it. So I'm hiding in the closet with this big gun in my hand, and so he goes, he can only be hiding in 3 places. So he checks the first one, not there. Second one, not there. Pulls the third one, and I stick the gun in his face, and he goes, not there.
Cue the laugh track.
Yeah, it was a. Then we did like Ben Crazy skit when they.
That's right.
Was Ben
That's the Ben Crazy shirt I have on right now. Now, how about this? This is true. Chad, do you know the origin of the laugh from Big Chuck and Little John?
No clue.
So it was like a whole charity thing. And the guy who does the laugh is a guy named Jay Lawrence, who was an actor. Jay Lawrence is the stage name of a guy. He was an actor for a long time, character actor. And his brother is Larry Storch from F Troop.
Wow.
So the Big Chuck and Little John laugh there was Larry Storch's brother, if you can believe that, who also was Mr. Whoopi on Tennessee Tuxedo and all those things.
Ken,
see, this is why you have me on the podcast, right, Ken?
I know. But Ken, you got to understand, this is like back when there was like 4 channels, and Big Chuck and Little John were huge in Cleveland. Like they were iconic.
TV here in South Jersey, especially down beach back then, was a little different, right, Dino? It was a little different, down beach here.
I remember having an antenna when I was younger.
Yeah.
Antenna, and we actually, if we had a problem, we had to go on the roof and move it around a little bit. And,
we had the antenna until 1965, then all down beach here got cabled, and every Sunday was a doubleheader Sunday from the mid to late 60s into when the blackout rules changed. Channel 3 was NBC, right, Dino? And and that was AFC, and Channel 4 was CBS, that was NFC, and every Sunday was a doubleheader Sunday here.
No, well, then we had UHF, VHF. Like I don't even think my kids know what a UHF or VHF
right,
is.
Yeah.
They've watched cable all this time. So
neither does Chad or Tony, Dino.
Did you guys get Philly stations or New York?
We got
Philadelphia.
Philly, but we got Philly. We got down here, down beach. We got Philly, New York, and all the the we call them the little like side channels. Like we got.
Well, when you had cable.
Yes, we got that. We had cable, but you guys,
but
you guys.
When you had the
them.
antenna, we could get Philadelphia channels only.
We got 3, 6, and 10, but we got channel 9. Was the Mets. Channel 11 was the Yankees. Channel 5 was Philadelphia. Channel 7 was Philadelphia. That was always the Phillies, right? Back then it was always the Phillies.
That was Channel 17.
Yeah.
Who was called?
Actually,
I'm sorry.
48 was a channel. We got UHF. 17 and I think 57 was the other
57, one. Yeah, that was the other one. For a long time.
3, 6, and 10.
That was out of Atlantic City for a long time, Dino.
Listen, I'm 66. I know you guys ain't 66, but
no, I'm only a few years behind you, Dino.
I'm 68. I'm 68 years old.
Yeah, nice try.
You aged well, Chad. I can tell you that.
I have an interesting segue here. So I'm 34. So when I was growing up, you had the cavernous stadium at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. And I remember growing up, I would turn on what I would think would be the Browns game. So the Browns were on NBC at the time, which was, and I would turn it on and I would see the Dolphins playing, the Patriots. I'm like, what? And I'm flipping through the channels. I'm like, because I didn't understand the blackout rules when I was a kid. And in those days, these were the post-Bernie Kosar days where Bill Belichick's the head coach. And there were a lot of times that Browns games were not being sold out. So you would either have to drive to Erie, Pennsylvania or Toledo to get out of that 75-mile radius to watch a game. And towards the end, before the Browns ended up leaving, they were kind of an unlikable team. They weren't as likable as the Hanford Dixons and the Bernies and everybody towards the mid to late 80s.
So Vinny Testaverde was the quarterback, right?
Yeah, colorblind Testaverde. And so I wanted to ask you, Dino, you get towards that time, you end up getting released by the Browns in 83. 12 years later, well, right around that time, as actually when the Colts ended up bolting with the Mayflower heading over to Indianapolis. What were your thoughts on Art Modell, the move to Baltimore, and just the fact that the team that you played for, the only team that you played for, ceased to exist at that point?
I was upset. I'll be honest with you, Tone. I thought Art just made a decision on his own, but after a while, after I really found out what was going on, he had no choice. Like he actually, if he doesn't move, he loses the team. So he moves. They gave him everything. They gave him the stadium parking. They gave him stadium concessions. I mean, they gave him money to move. So did he make the right decision? I don't think so, because I'm a Browns fan, but did he make the right financials? He did. The move was right for that. But listen, it was like I went to Glassboro State, and this guy Rowan, he got involved. He donated $100 million to the school. So they changed the name of the school from Glassboro State to Rowan. I'm like, oh Christ, man, I can't believe it. So now the Browns leave. I'm like, oh my God, like they become the Ravens. Like the two teams I played for, they both moved or changed their name. So,
and what was the corporate center, Dino? What was the corporate center for that Mayflower moving company? Pleasantville, New Jersey.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. That was where they were initially. That's where they initially started from, the Mayflower. Yeah, right down there on California Avenue.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
Did you stay in touch with Ozzie when he went to Baltimore? Did you happen to speak with him?
Well, him and a guy Moriarty. I don't know if you know Pat. Pat is he does contracts and stuff like that for them now. But he was with Art here in Cleveland, but he played a year in the NFL. He played in '79. He was one of the other running backs that played in '79. But so he ended up moving. So I stay in touch with Pat a lot. And I talk to Ozzie also. It's not so much that we correspond, regularly, but I do talk to Oz a little bit. Like two of the guys they had, Bill, what was Bill's last name? Anyway, he was our trainer. He was a fantastic trainer. Well, he went to Baltimore with him. And this guy, Eddie Carroll, he did all the driving, the trucks, moved all the equipment, stuff like that. But I retired. So I went down there, and about 5 of us from the Browns went down because we really liked Bill and Eddie. And so Ozzie's telling a story about the first time he saw me coming into the locker room. He goes, yeah, I thought I was just somebody, they had to give somebody's friend a chance to let this kid into the to try out for us. And I was there like, man, he just threw me under the bus like that, didn't he? And he goes, yeah. And then he started talking. He goes, no, but Dean was really a good. Well, they used to call me Deansky. Because Deansky was a good player, but I mean, he just was there. I was like, wow, I had to feel small around him too. Like, we're playing in Buffalo. I get it great. And so if you knew anything about Rich Stadium, the fans were right on top of you. I mean, if you had a 15-yard buffer, that's saying a lot. So all of a sudden, I'm standing next to this guy, Matt Miller, who him and I were really good friends. Now he's 6'6", 6'7". So he hears and I hear this guy screaming, "Hey, 71, 71!" And he didn't have to scream. He probably didn't talk. We would have heard him. So he goes, "Hey, there's a helmet right next to you moving." So him and I looked at each other, just started laughing. I was like, pretty damn good.
What was your favorite place to play in? I mean, let's take Cleveland out, but like you said, you hated playing in the Astrodome because it was tough to see. But like, was there a good stadium that you really enjoyed playing in? Like the wind was right, or was it something definitely south where you didn't have to deal with the elements?
Well, the 3 teams we played in our division all had AstroTurf. Like Cincinnati had AstroTurf, Pittsburgh has AstroTurf. So you played them twice a year. The other teams, like Tampa had a beautiful field. Now it was 98, and
the Sombrero
98 too. So, but the field was beautiful. It's not something that I would want to play in every week. I'll be honest with you. I liked our home stadium. I really did. I enjoyed playing in the municipal stadium. Now, it was funny because guys would come in and they're trying to catch a punt. And if you didn't know the wind, like the wind would come in off the lake and just swirl around. And some days it really came off hard. So now you would set up for a punt and now it's 5 yards behind you because you didn't plan for that. Well, if you played there, you knew that. I remember watching the one, I forget who we were playing, but he's trying to catch before the game. I'm there like, oh, he's going to have problems today. And darn if he didn't, man. The ball landed 5 or 10 yards behind him like twice because it just would pick it up and carry it. It just, that's the thing about Municipal. But even though I didn't like the infield, I love that field, playing on that field.
Well, let me ask you this, since we're talking Municipal and it's a big thing going on in sports, not just Cleveland. I grew up a Cleveland Browns fan. I grew up a Cleveland Indians fan. Now, there's a situation that's going on where that doesn't exist anymore. They're called the Guardians. I want to know, where do you stand on this? What's your thoughts on this controversial name change that no one seems to like?
Well, I finally found out why they changed it to the Guardians. There must be some statues on one of the bridges coming into the city, and that's why they changed it. But I don't know. I still call them the Indians. I'll be honest with you. Like I got a bat from Joe Charbonneau. Had him sign something. Like Super Joe was amazing in 1980.
They wrote a song about him.
Yeah, they did.
Super Joe.
But and a good guy. Moriarty and I are playing in '79, and Joe's hanging around with Moriarty. Not '79. It might have been '80. And he's hanging out around with Moriarty. And Moriarty had this old sport jacket on, and they come walking in, and it's Doug Deacon's Monday night show that we're all at. So Joe's trying to get Pat's attention. So, I'm watching him, and all of a sudden he just grabs the bottom of Pat's jacket, rips it straight up. So he tore it in half. I was there like, he didn't just do that, did he? He goes, yeah. And Pat was there like, he just ripped my jacket. I was there, yeah, he did. It was incredible. But but he was fun. Look, there was a lot of people that were fun back then. Back then, they were getting 7,500 to 8,000 people a game for the Indians. I mean, it was horrendous. It was a shame, but because that stadium holds a lot of people, and it looked like they had 2 high school teams coming in and playing, and that would be the normal that you would get. But it was a shame. But he was a character, Joe.
He flashed out fast too, right? He hurt his back and flashed out. Yeah, flashed out.
Yeah,
he was
a
done.
shame.
Yeah, he was actually, we got a chance to hang out with him a couple of years ago. My wife and I, we went to a bar over in Berea, and we were just hanging out after, I think we went to a concert that night, and he goes to the bathroom, and I tell my wife, I'm like, you know who that is, right? And she's like, no. And I'm like, it's Joe Charbonneau. And he's just hanging out. We're just ripping shots, and he takes his shirt off at the bar. I mean, the guy's like, he's got to be 66, 67 years old. He's got like an 8-pack washboard abs at this. I'm like, wow, you were in great shape. Yeah, Joe Charbonneau was, he's another legend in Cleveland. He's like Dino Hall. Dino, if you ever come back to town, I'm sure if you just mention your name, you won't have to buy a meal or a drink at a bar anywhere.
I always come back to there. I was there 3 times this past year. Like when Deacon, his last game, I ended up, I drove out because they canceled my flight. So I drove out, and that was a really special day, man. Doug Deacon, I tell you, and I don't know if you guys know him personally, but really, really super guy. Now, he doesn't give me a break as far as, busting my chops, but you know what? He's just one of those guys, kind, and I like being around him. So,
it's funny, when I worked at MMS on the radio, we had afternoon drive. We had our sales room, our conference room was called the Doug Deacon room. They named it after him with a plaque. So we're like, we're going to the Doug Deacon room to meet up.
Yeah. No, well, have you ever been to close quarters out in Bay Village?
Oh, yes.
It's a little bar, but it's a great little place. I would meet Doug there a couple of times, but yeah, last year I was there 3 times. I actually found out now I ended up having a daughter in Cleveland, Never knew anything about her for 38 years. And then I did ancestry.com, and she did it maybe a month or two after, and found out that, we were father-daughter. So
Wow, breaking news. This is
I've
breaking
seen
news
her.
on the
she's
Raccoon
been here.
podcast.
No, she's been here, and my wife met her and really likes her. She got 3 wonderful kids. So Ryan, if you're listening, I just want to say hello to you.
Do they live in Cleveland?
They live in Brooklyn.
Oh, Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's where my parents were from. Hey, Dino, you played a
No, Brooklyn, Ohio. Kenny.
Oh, Brooklyn, Ohio. Okay.
Yeah,
My parents are Brooklyn, New York. But
yeah,
you played a Thanksgiving game, didn't you, in Dallas?
I
If
did.
I remember. Yeah, you played a Thanksgiving day. You guys lost, but
Hey, Dino, how much the Cowboys suck, do you think? I think they're terrible.
Stop it. But Dino scored a touchdown. Dino had an 18-yard reception for a touchdown. What do you remember about that?
That it was a touchdown. Well, Paul McDonald actually was in the game at that time, and I was actually getting it a lot. That was in '82. That was right after the strike. I mean, we had a 59-day strike or 58-day strike. It was something crazy, and that was my 4th year. That's the year that I was going to get my pension. So you're supposed to have 3 games. We only had 2 games when we went out on strike. We weren't sure if we were going to come back. And I was there like, oh my God, I'm not sure if I was going to get my pension or what, but we returned and a lot of guys were out of shape, but I stayed in shape. So I ended up playing a lot when we first got back in there.
So it might have been around that time, Dino. I wonder when I saw you at Levan, I'm trying to think back of the years I played all those years. I wonder if you guys were on strike then. But yeah, Dallas beat you guys pretty good that day. But you always kept yourself in great shape. I mean, we used to run, as you remember, with Joe Henry. We played a lot of ball with, and God bless him. We played a lot of ball back in the day with Joe, and he kept us all in good shape, didn't he?
Guy played every day down there at noon to like 12:30 or whatever. You guys don't know him, Chad and Tony. This guy coached me when I was it's called the Atlantic County Junior Football League, and I played in that, and I played for Pleasantville Tornadoes, and he was one of our coaches, a little guy, but he worked in Margate. That's where Kenny grew up, and he would play, instead of go out and eat lunch, he would play basketball with the kids at his lunch break every day, right across from the Jewish Community Center.
Yeah. The courts are now named after him.
Are they really? Wow,
Yeah,
I did not know that.
The courts are named after him. Yeah.
Did Yogi do that?
Yogi did that. Yep. Yogi
good for
did
him.
that. Yogi lives right up the block here from me.
Wow.
So I see. Yeah, I talked to Yogi, a little inside baseball guy. Sorry about that, but yeah, I talk to Yogi all the time. I played a lot of years for Yogi.
I just want to bring this up real quick. The last time the Browns played the Cowboys, they beat them 49-38. Just giving you a heads up on that.
Okay.
That was what, 2 years ago, Chad?
I mean, I'm just saying the 3-1 Browns beat the 1-3 Dallas Cowboys that year. I'm just saying.
Gentlemen, I have to bounce here. I'm getting discharged from the hospital here. But Dino, it's a pleasure speaking with you. I'd love to hang out with you and Ken sometime. We're going to go to Atlantic City. The missus and I are trying to plan another trip there because we went during pandemic time and things just weren't the same. So yeah, I'd love to catch up and have some dinner, but we got to have lunch first at White House Subs. That's what
we can do that.
We'll arrange that.
And actually, right down the street is called Angeloni's. Is a really good Italian.
That's the spot. Alan
Okay.
Angeloni's.
Yeah.
Alan Angeloni, right, Dino?
Yeah.
Alan Angeloni.
Yeah.
That's the spot is right.
That's a great place to go. So yeah,
I'll make it happen, Tony. I'll make it happen.
Kenny's got
Absolutely.
my number.
Well, thanks, gentlemen. Check Your Brain podcast every Wednesday for free and patreon.com/Tony Mazer. Thanks, everybody. Thanks all for the well wishes too. With all my, for whatever reason, my body's just shutting down on me.
Get well, Tony. We'll close this thing out with Dino. And Dino, before we roll out, I need to know who your top 5 favorite Browns players are.
Great question.
Wow. Well, you know what?
They don't even have to be the best. Your favorite.
That I played with or all time?
All time. And you can even throw in guys you played with too. Just to
All
make it interesting.
time. Listen, I'm gonna say all time. Cody Rison's one of my
Oh,
favorite
yeah.
players. Bernie, Brian,
yeah.
both of those guys are and I used to love Webster Slaughter.
Webster.
I mean, it was crazy. You know, I like watching him play. Look, Ozzie, Clay Matthews, Dick Ambrose, another guy that we call Bam Bam, Jerry Shirk. Jerry Shirk was a monster my rookie year. And we went into Philadelphia and they had the AstroTurf and he skinned his knee and didn't clean it properly. He got a staph infection, almost lost his life. You know, ended up pretty much losing his career basically, but he was an awesome player. But yeah, like Doug, he's always going to be one of my favorite people, Deacon. But as far as players, Dave Logan, and I don't know if you guys remember him much at all, but Dave Logan was an incredible athlete, not an incredible football player, very good, don't get me wrong, but he could have played baseball. I think he was drafted in baseball, basketball, he could have played, or football, and chose football, but some of the people that I played against that are some of my favorite players. There was a guy that I remember, Robert Brazil, played for
Houston
Oilers.
Yeah.
He was rough. And as a running back, I would have to block the guy. He was 260, which, I didn't block him. I fell down by his toes and tried to get him, but no, the other guy, listen, I played against the Steelers where they had 11 guys that were quality players. From Jack Ham to Jack Lambert to Andy Russell was the other.
Andy Russell, yeah.
They had Joe Green, Elsie Greenwood, Donnie Shell, Mike Webster, Mike Wagner was their safety, Mel Blunt. How many guys made the Hall of Fame out of that one team? Earl Campbell we played against twice a year, so I got to see him run twice a year. And Kenny Anderson, I don't know if you guys remember him.
Cincinnati quarterback.
Actually was the MVP of 1981 of the AFC. He threw the best ball that I saw any quarterback. Look, I saw Fouts throw, I saw all those guys, but Anderson's spiral was unbelievable. I think
Chad may be too young to remember him.
Yeah, but he had a guy, Dan Ross, playing that was a tight end.
Tight end, yeah.
Dan was, and I ended up playing with Dan when I went to Portland. I played with the Portland Breakers in the USFL a year, and Dan Ross was on that team.
Wow,
crazy! But
that's some great names.
I tell you what, a lot of look, Metcalf. I used to like watching him. Josh Cribbs. I told you I
Terry Metcalf.
So there's and look, this kid Chubb, another kid that's
Nick Chubb,
player, man, and quality person from what I understand. Never met him, but he just seems like a really pretty good kid. So,
well, one guy who always gets left out,
but I mean, I say kid because I'm an old man.
One guy gets left out who I have an affection for, and I think Cleveland in general is a kicker, Phil Dawson, who him and Josh Cribbs were our offense at one point. Literally,
right.
They were the only one scoring points was Josh Cribbs and Phil Dawson. That's it.
No, Dawson was a good kicker. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, I just I didn't know the Browns much in the 60s, and that was their heyday, because we were more of Eagles or the Cowboys, like Don Meredith. I don't even remember him, but he was one of my favorite quarterbacks. But I'm a Norman Snead. Norm Snead was my favorite player when I was a kid growing up. In high school, I took 16 because of him. I played quarterback in high school. But yeah, he there's just been so many fantastic players. But to see Chuck Muncie was a monster. I don't know if you know, Chuck Muncie
Hey.
was a unbelievable runner.
Yeah, he played for the Saints, right? He played many years with the Saints.
Well, he was with San Diego.
Yeah, but then he went to the Saints, right? Didn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't he go to the
But
Saints?
he had to be 6'3". He was bigger
He
than
was big. Yeah.
But over the years, I watched some of the games, and I go back to the Oakland Raiders. Like Darryl LaMonica was one of my. I grew up on Oakland Avenue, so when I watched the AFC, all of a sudden Oakland Raiders, I'm like, you gotta like them. So, and so it was LaMonica. You have Warren Wells was a receiver. Who was it? Marv Hubbard was a runner. I mean,
Yeah. Marv Hubbard.
they had some quality, and I followed them through until I became a Browns, and then obviously I was no longer a Raiders fan. I became a Browns fan. So, and my kids are Browns fans, which is pretty cool. Like my youngest, Nick, he loves the Browns. My daughter does, and my oldest, they all. So
You're a
And
good
Nick's
father.
coaching. Yeah, Nick's coaching, right?
he's
Nick's coaching at Holy Spirit.
He's coaching the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, my alma mater. Yep. And it was AJ Russo, who's a close friend of mine, who got me back in touch with Dino after all these years. So I'm going to give a shout out to AJ for help putting this together, Dino, and getting you on here. So it's so great to catch up to you after all these years. And I just remember back in the day with Mr. Henry, you're always a class guy to all those kids. I'll say kids because I'm a little younger than you, but you're always a class guy to us. And we ran into you, whether it be in Pleasantville or on the field when you were catching the balls from Keith Levan. You always took the time to come over and say hello and talk to us. And a lot of us still remember that.
Well, you know what? I felt fortunate to play in the league. I don't think I ever felt like, oh Christ, I'm a NFL player. I always felt like, I was more of a human being than what I was doing at the time. So I loved doing that. I loved talking to everybody at that time. And look, Keith Levan, you're right. He pelted me with.
Yeah,
that
was wild.
Strong arm, man. It wasn't like, and he goes, he would make up stuff. He goes, get down on your knees now and catch the ball. I'll throw the ball. And he's 10 yards away, friggin' throwing it out.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah.
But you think of those things, and there was a couple kickers back then that actually would kick to me down at Mainland. I would go to Mainland and they would, what the heck was his name?
There's some good kickers too. Mainland, Mainland Mustangs.
Him and his son both kicked for Mainland.
Yeah.
And went on and had college careers. So
yeah, the son went to Villanova, and I just can't think of his name. I know who you mean. He went on to Villanova.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to piggyback Ken's sentiments, I want to say this as a 6-year-old Browns fan who was obsessed. And if you were to ask me when I was 6 years old, one day I would be talking to Dino Hall on a podcast. First, I'd say, what's a podcast? And secondly, like, how, when? So this was exciting for me because I still look at all you legends is like, I'm still like a little kid. So this was fun for me. And thank you for taking the time and doing the podcast.
Chad, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. No, this is great.
And listen, I'll be back in Cleveland again next year, like during the season. So, if you want to do something that week prior, I'm good with that.
That would be great. We'll have you back on.
Yeah, no, that'd be fun.
Definitely. And use that name Dino Hall in those restaurants, man. You can get some free food. You got to drop that name.
I got friends. I got friends that they were like, man, you never said no. I said, yeah, I know. Well, the thing is,
if you're not going to use your name, I will. I was like, I know Dino Hall.
Well, my one friend,
my meal.
My one friend Kenny Adams did use my name. Like he became me. He said, if you're not going to use it, I'm going to use it. So, all right.
I hope we can catch up. Maybe you and I can grab a meal together, and I hope we can catch up. But again, just thanks so much for doing this. It was really, really great catching up with you. It brings back a lot of great memories and gave me a chance to think of our old pal, Joe Henry, as well. So it was a lot of fun. And thanks a lot. Chad, I'll let you close it out with Dino.
I appreciate it. Thanks
you. On behalf of Ken Mosca, I'm Chad Zumock. This is the Rack Me Football Podcast. Our guest today was Dino Hall. Thank you so much. Please leave a 5-star review on the iTunes, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and sign up to the Patreon. That's it. That's a wrap. Good night.